This video is brought to you courtesy of the highly esteemed members of Pomo Bespoke. Welcome. Today we are looking at boots again, jot pause, springing, something that we did about 2 or 3 months ago, but it is the privilege of members of our channel that when they ask for a revision, they get it. So today's revision was requested by 276. Be like 276. Join membership of Pomo Bespoke. Now let's get into it. The last that we're using is this, and this is the mean form associated with it. The last length is 24 cm and the heel height is 3 cm. And of course, all of the cardinal points are where they should be. And to start our jot paw boot design, we draw a right angle first and mark out the heel height on the vertical line of the right angle, 3 cm on that vertical line. Then moving in 2 cm on the heel of the outline of the mean form, we go ahead and outline the mean form on that right angle, ensuring that the ball of the mean form touches the horizontal line of the right angle. Of course, we go ahead and mark out all of our cardinal points, and then we begin our design proper.
To design any boot, you have to start with the simple boot design. Like we did when we did loafers, we started out with the simple loafers. Now we start with a simple boot. First thing we're going to do, we draw the vamp line from the vamp point to the ball. Divide that vamp line into 2 and draw the quarter line to connect to that middle point of the vamp line. Then we'll draw a line from the heel to the ball and draw another line that is parallel to that line from the heel to the ball, but this parallel line will pass through the instep. So you see this jig of rulers that I did help me draw a parallel line parallel to the one running from the heel to the ball. Now we will draw a line from the heel to the instep. This line from the heel to the instep, we will measure it. You see that it is 14 cm. Half of that distance we'll mark it on that parallel line that we drew. And then if we draw a right angle from our base, our horizontal right angle line, to pass through that point on that parallel line that we drew, that will be the standing line of this boot. Now, a boot has to have a height. The height of the boot will be measured on this standing line. So if we extend that line, and whatever height we want our boot to be, we will mark it from the point the standing line cuts on the feather edge. So in this case, we want the boot to be about 12 to 13 cm high. That's just about ankle length. Now the child who is going to wear this boot, I don't have the child with me, so typically you should measure the point, the ankle of the child on the child, but I will just use the last as reference. So the ankle girth, the ankle circumference of this boot is 22 cm. Because we are designing on one side of the last, we're going to use half of that distance. First of all, let's draw the front part of the boot, the front shaft line of the boot, and then on that point where the height of the boot is marked, we'll draw a line perpendicular to the front shaft line of the boot to give us our top line, the top line of our boot. Our ankle girth, half of our ankle girth, which is 11 cm, will now be represented on this top line. So you can see that I extend from here, from this point to there is 11 cm. I can basically curve in the front shaft line of the boot like so. And then being that extends all the way to that area, I mark in there and extend the back quarter part of the boot like so. So this will now be the outline of our simple boot. That is the top line. And this is the front shaft line of our boot, extending that way. So this is a simple boot. Any other design you want to now place on this boot, you can go ahead and place on it. If it's a Chelsea boot, you add in the pattern for the elastic. Because this is a jot paw, I divided the top line into 2 and drew a right angle line from that line, and basically add the jot paw design that you have. You know that the back part is not at the same height with the top part, and there is a curve around that back part of the front part of the boot, right? So this is going to be the midpoint where the front part and the back part meet themselves. But then there is also going to be the part where the back part extends into the front part, which we are going to represent in our design with dashes to show that it is on the inside of the front part. Basically, this is the design of your jot pause. From this point going downwards, you will be stitched permanently, and then the strap of your jot pause can extend from there, and then you can come forward from there. Easy peasy. This is just a revision of jot pause design that we did in time past, so we have basically just breezed through it. So the key thing is, you first of all design your simple boot, and then you can implement any other design that you want on your simple boot. The back part of this design usually doesn't have problems. The part that many people face some problem is the front part, which, because of the elongated and extended curves that you have on the front center line of the boot, you would have to spring. And that was the specific request that my friend 276 made, which we are going to address in this second part of the video. So this second part of the video is going to be dedicated to springing of the front part of this boot, which we have marked out and outlined independently, and we're going to spring it right now. So this is the standard design that we have, and this is the front part of the boot that we have cut out. Now I want you to notice a number of things that I have done to it. This front shaft line, I have extended it so that it goes all the way to the feather edge. You see that? Then I have divided the front shaft into several areas by drawing right angles at different points. So this right angle goes down here, and that one that way. So you see that there are 3 independent points correspondent to points along the back part of the shaft. So we place the shaft line on our center line and draw all the way to this point, and using that point as pivot, we pivot to the next point on the center line, pivot to the next point on the center line, and then pivot to the tip of the last. Then we'll draw all this back feather edge part, and using that tip as pivot, we pivot to the vamp point, and using that point as pivot, we pivot back down. Now this is a rough sprung front part of this boot that we can add our 2 cm of lasting allowance to, but I must warn you that this has extended the length of the shaft by about 1 or 1.5 cm thereabouts. There is a way to correct that and eliminate that extension. I'll talk to you about that in the later part of the video. But because we have no designs on this front part, it is safe to carry on with this elongated design, because you're ultimately going to have your standard, your real design that you can use to correct things after you would have sprung. But springing is also a bonus part that I want to add to this video, and it is a part that usually gives people problems. You see that I have marked out the instep on that design, and see the thickness of leather that I'm using. It is not very flimsy leather. It is supple and flexible, but it is not flimsy. It is not very thin leather. So I mark out that instep point. That is very critical if your crimping is going to be easy for you. I have also bisected the entire thing, and now I'm basically just going to soak it into water. Now sometimes you have leather that when you soak it into water, the dyes will come off, which is why I now don't soak completely. I just soak a little bit until the water permeates into the grain, to the grain side of the leather. I just wipe it off and start my crimping. So let's do crimping now. You know, I didn't realize that my camera wasn't rolling while I was crimping this one. I thought I had. Actually, I was explaining things and I didn't realize the camera wasn't rolling. So I said the village people that don't want you people to see how I crimp boots will not succeed. But let me drink my tea first of all, and then we'll get back to crimping. So you face your crimping board in a V shape like this and put the instep at the steepest part of that V, pointing upwards. Then you centralize the entire pattern. Your key worry at this point is to ensure that you have no wrinkle around that instep point. So you use your hand and keep all wrinkles, every single wrinkle, away from that point, and then you staple as you see that I'm doing. This is how I do it. This is how it works for me, and it's pretty easy. Many people find it hard to crimp, but I find that when I do it this way, is actually easy. It doesn't take up to 5 minutes and I'm done. So you keep your hand, still trying to keep that place, all wrinkles away from that middle point. By the time you add these few tacks, you'd find that everything is as it should be. Just one last pull here, and you find that this whole thing is now almost well crimped. All I need to do is fine-tuning pulls around the edges. Then one last pull here. And then yet another pull there. And ladies and gentlemen, just one last pull. And maybe one more right there. Now of course I sped this up by about 2 times the normal speed, but you can see that even with that it is pretty straightforward and easy. The key thing is to put your crimping board in a V, not L, in a V position when you're starting, and then face and focus on your instep. Now I mentioned that I was going to show you how to correct the elongation of the vamp that happens when you spring a boot like this. So let's do that. So let's revise what we did when we sprung. We got to that point, used it as pivot, pivoted to this position, got to that point, pivoted to the next position, got to that point, pivoted to the tip. Then drew in all of the feather edge. Using the tip as pivot, we got to the vamp point and then drew in to the ball. Using the ball as pivot, we pivoted to the back side, the downside of the feather edge. Now, to reduce the height, this is what we do. We pivot from the middle of the vamp point and draw in the front part. The real length of this pattern is from that new point that we have, not from that elongated point, but from this. So this is what we had before, but this is the correct pattern. And to prove it to you, watch what happens. Watch what happens when we align the base angle of this entire vamp, the base angle of the entire vamp. When we align the base angle of the vamp and the instep to their correct positions and pivot from that base angle. See, that is the correct point. So 275 wares, I hope this helped you out. Until I see you guys on the next video, God bless you. Peace.